And here we go. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, your last day before ticket prices go up to get Pitbull tickets. Pitbull, just one of the many acts at this year's Boise Music Festival, brought to you by Town Square Media Boise. 10 years of big acts. 10 years of great entertainment. Some people get to go see the show for free. Some people want to buy the upgrades. Some people just want to make sure they're good to go. Go to our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, to figure out how you can get a great deal on some great tickets and have some fun. You know, so many times we think we have to go somewhere to have a good time, and whether it's to the Oregon coast or to Salt Lake or Seattle or Portland or wherever, look, we have a great time here. And, you know, sometimes we at the Broadcast Center, we forget our company is part of those good times. And not to be too much of a homer, but we've got Idaho's largest garage sale coming up. We've got the Boise Music Festival, and one of the great family-friendly events throughout the Treasure Valley, getting international attention now, is the Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic, brought to you by our friends at CapEd Credit Union. And that's just around the corner. Of course, that's really almost like the end of summer, and spring is here, by the way. Phone numbers, you know them, to join the conversation on the right side, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But an issue that we talked about yesterday, we talked a little bit about in the 6 o'clock hour. And I will admit to you, I didn't get as much feedback as I thought because I guess the pro-hempers weren't up. But, you know, the Senate is considering hemp. And from the media and everybody but Kevin Miller, although the Idaho Prosecutors Association agrees with me, that hemp is not good for the state. Let's hear it from our news partner, Channel 7.
Monday, with only 7 no votes, sponsored by Republican Representative Carolyn Troy. If this bill is passed, then both hemp production and processing would be legal in Idaho. Idaho law would also be caught up with federal law. The 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp so long as it contains less than 0.3% THC. Troy says her bill would solve any current issues with interstate commerce. For example, hemp being transported between states where it's legal, but then running into trouble if the shipment passes through Idaho. She added that the crop could also be a big boost for farmers.
I've heard stories where farmers are paying up to $1 to $2 per seed to grow hemp. So, and we know how to do that. We're really good at it. So, you know, an opportunity for our farmers to produce seed for other farmers to grow hemp might be the perfect niche for Idaho to hit.
Troy added that she thinks there's an opportunity to process hemp as well at the paper plant in Lewiston. Now, the bill is scheduled to be in the Senate State Affairs Committee either tomorrow or sometime this week, and the measure would still need to clear the Senate and get a signature from the governor in order to become law, but we'll be keeping an eye on this.
There we have it. Gretchen Parsons from the Gretchen Parsons Project, courtesy of Channel 7, with Kevin Miller here. So, many of you that have called into this program agree that we need to repeal the grocery tax and we need to legalize hemp. But you're not getting the whole story. The media, the lawmakers, the pro-hempers, the hempsters are not giving you the total story. From our friends, the Idaho Prosecuting Attorneys Association, they've given us the other side of the story. Did you know that not state, not local, not any law enforcement agency was consulted in this hempster bill? And look, I'm not begrudging anybody looking to make a buck. Personally, there was a young lady back in 94, 95 known as the Hemp Lady. And every year the Hemp Lady, and she wore hemp and smelled like hemp, would be campaigning for president. I had a chance to have some spirited debates with her. And God rest her soul, I don't think she's with us anymore. And if she is, that's really a big tribute to hemp. But she talked about the virtues of hemp. But if you can't determine the difference between hemp and marijuana, does that change the hempsters? And if you can't determine the difference, if the state of Idaho does not have the ability to do this, which we currently do not. Now, this is not the ramblings of Kevin Miller, having been called the right-wing extremist. This is the ramblings of the state law enforcement agencies from their letter concerning HB 122. Unfortunately, our concerns and amendments have not been considered, and HB 122 is not a product of inclusion. Rather, HB 122 includes no protections for state law enforcement and will effectively legalize marijuana in this state. There you have it. Idaho prosecutors and law enforcement have come up with the logical and effective ways to make sure that law enforcement can continue to do their jobs and enforce current controlled substances laws while allowing Idaho's agricultural community to grow regulated hemp allowed under the Farming Act. No one's listened to law enforcement. We listen to law enforcement. We love law enforcement. Some of the sponsors of HB 122 have been misleading in their statements with regard to what law enforcement can and cannot do on the street when they come into contact with hemp or marijuana. By the way, all the hempsters who have called in and passionately disagreed with yours truly, Kevin Miller, you have no answer to this argument from law enforcement at 580 KIDO. There are no roadside tests available to law enforcement to test whether a plant is hemp or marijuana on the street. In many cases, law enforcement cannot visually tell the difference between a hemp or a marijuana plant, and the only way for law enforcement to make that determination is through a quantitative THC test, which they currently do not have the ability to do. How much money is it going to cost if these roadside tests exist? Will it cost the state to put in every cruiser? I don't know. But hey, we're going to get $1 a seed, everybody. In addition, with no sideboards in place for law enforcement, all of Idaho's drug canines will become invalid. All of these issues and many, many more could be resolved if a consensus bill were to be considered. Unfortunately, Idaho's law enforcement community has been shut out of the conversation. Idaho's prosecutors and law enforcement understand the motivation to provide an alternative crop for Idaho farmers and are willing to work with the agricultural community. However, HB 122 is not the answer. It has never been our intent to prevent a pathway forward, but just like all the other states that have developed successful hemp programs, Idaho's laws must provide the statutory guidance to protect the safety of the community, the grower, and law enforcement's ability to enforce the controlled substance laws of the state. HB 122 provides none of that. This is from Jan Bennett, Brian Lavelle, Ben Wolfinger, Craig Kingsbury, all representing law enforcement groups. And people will say, well, Kevin Miller, it's going to be good for the farmers. How in the world, and by the way, I must be right on this one because I haven't anybody saying I'm off my rocker, which I am quite a bit, which what happened yesterday. And where, when we talk about public service, and look, we're Idaho's first radio station. Currently, we're the keepers of the flame, the walkers on the wall, the carrier of the mantle. But why haven't we heard the alternative argument from the law enforcement agencies? Where has the local media been? No, you know why? Because the narrative for the media is this is good stuff. Hemp, it's newsworthy. Hemp, legalize medical marijuana, legalize weed. Idaho can't hold everybody off. Say what you want about Governor Little. He's not down with legalizing marijuana. Not marijuana, not CBD oil. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. If you believe the conventional wisdom, the Senate will bulldog this through a committee. The Senate will vote on it. The governor will sign it, and hemp will be legal. Hallelujah, everybody. However, we're not addressing the significant problem that everyone besides yours truly is ignoring, which has been a pattern of my life. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. There's no way to test between marijuana and hemp for law enforcement. So essentially, and you don't even have to have me assuming it, we go back to this statement from the lawmakers, the law enforcement folks. Unfortunately, our concerns and amendments have not been considered, and HB 122 is not a product of inclusion. They've left out the law enforcement people. HB 122 includes no protections for law enforcement and will effectively legalize marijuana in this state. That's pretty big news, considering the source. Nobody's discussing that one because they just want the hemp to roll in and we can all smoke a doobie. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to the phones. Pro-Life joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yeah, you read that law enforcement write-up. That's a big lie because
they wrote it to the legislators, and no one has picked this up besides you and me.
I know. Now listen, the law enforcement people, the State Patrol, all of them, they know where the state capitol is. They know that if they go up there, sign in to that they can testify on the bill, they'll put them right up at the front. And so whoever wrote that letter, that's a lie. They have not been excluded. Now, there might
they weren't consulted on the bill.
No, listen. You have to go and testify. That's your obligation.
Well, I
you
hope
can't
they
just
go.
write a letter.
I hope they go and testify and shut this down.
Well, but that letter's a lie.
It's not a lie.
No, they didn't go and testify. They wrote a letter instead of going up there.
I don't know if they didn't testify. I wasn't up there. Were you testifying at the hemp thing?
No, but if they went,
neither one of us know.
If they went and testified, then they can't write a letter like that. But anyway, that bill just needs to say that until there's ways to test for hemp, then the bill isn't effective, and so they can pass the bill, put off a year, whatever, until they get the instruments, the equipment to test. So they can still do that.
Well, they need to amend the bill and then send it back to committee. Oh, we don't have any time for that.
Well,
you know the legislative shuffle.
Yeah, they're pretty messed up. But
so back to my point, though.
Yeah.
Shouldn't law enforcement have been consulted on this?
They were consulted.
You don't know that.
Yes.
You don't know that.
Listen, when there's a pro-life bill, they don't write me a letter and invite me to come down there. My obligation is to go down there and testify. It's not that the legislature has to invite me down there. That's total BS.
Ooh, I think you were almost going to swear.
I was, almost. Well, we love you, Kevin.
What radio station makes you swear in the morning?
KIDO.
with Kevin Miller in the morning. Thank you, Pro-Life.
And Ray Amaya, he's the best.
And Ray Amaya, he gets you warmed up in the bullpen.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Law enforcement says this bill is not inclusionary. Kevin Miller says hemp needs to go. Let's hear from you next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And here we go. Just say no to the hemp. Law enforcement agrees with the forces of good. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, full of a little hyperbole myself. It's rare that people agree with me. Let's get to the phones. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Teresa in Meridian. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning.
Hi, go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Hey, I'm really concerned about this bill also because I've watched the takedown of Washington State and also California as they allow the marijuana to come in. And as you know, that ushers in the opioids. And then the Medicaid expansion actually helps enable everybody who is on the drugs. And you have a major problem. And so that's what's happened. They have already lined their nest by, creating the Medicaid expansion. So when these people start to flood in to Boise, once the hemp is passed, because marijuana will be right there, you're absolutely right. And then you will have opioids all over your streets.
And it's funny how no one is picking the story up about how law enforcement saying They weren't consulted. This is not the answer. Let's work together to find a difference.
Well, exactly. With this, they're going to try to do this to get this passed. It's all going to sound good. Same thing with Marsy's Law. It's all about removing the guns, removing the rights, and ushering in a socialist system. And as you know, the other states, you just got to push. The other states are a mess. They're absent. And that's why people are running out here, because of the very same thing. And they make it sound like, oh, this is all good. It's going to help our economy. It's always that, it's going to be great for money. But what happens to society is the young kids start getting on the pot, and the cops don't do anything about it because it's illegal. You can't manage it. It's too hard to manage, like you said. I don't care if you have a machine to tell if it's hemp or not. Once the door is open, it's opened. And then all those people that love having pot, I meet them all the time every day that come over here from other states. And the one thing that keeps them from settling down here is they can't have access to their pot.
Well, that's that's like a virtual wall.
Absolutely. And it's very frustrating to them. Like I said, in my career, my job, I meet so many people who are coming over from the other states, and they're frustrated. They go back because they don't have access to free Medicaid, and they don't have the ability to have their drugs. And our cops are really tough.
Anything else you want? We've got a couple pro-hempers that are going to follow you, Teresa. What do you say to them?
People are always going to want to have their drugs. Great, have your own drugs on your own time, but it doesn't mean we legalize it. It doesn't. You don't need to. There's not one necessity for it whatsoever. They have not validated what this is going to bring in and how. It doesn't matter. What we have proven is what it's done to every city that touches it. We have proven that every state that legalizes pot is nothing but a mess. And then the taxpayers pick up the bill to fund and take care of all the addicts. And that's what's going to happen. We will be taxed to start taking care of all the druggies that come sliding in here. So if you want to have yourself taxed and you want to have people laying on the streets, have at it.
Teresa, thank you for telling the truth this morning. We appreciate it.
No problem. Let's keep Boise great.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's keep the Treasure Valley great again. Traffic and weather together. Our time is 8:26. Eric in Cuna, one of the hempsters, calling us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah. Well, okay. Let's talk about hemp for a second.
You heard what Teresa said.
Okay. Before I go to hemp, now
you heard what Teresa
Kevin,
said.
I got the perfect. Let's call it the perfect narrative to you and the lady that just called. You and her and other people, they have this implanted narrative in their mind that dictates the perception before it's even perceived. You understand?
I'm just repeating what law enforcement said.
Way back,
I'm just going back to what law enforcement said.
We're not going to talk about hemp because hemp isn't pot. You ain't going to see anybody rolling that crap up and smoking it. I promise you that.
I know you're not responding to what Teresa said.
What did she say? What am I responding to?
She agreed.
I heard everything she
and
said.
She said.
I heard everything she said.
The hempsters are wrong. This is the road to legalization.
I'm not a hempster, and here's what happened with hemp and pot, and some stoner hippie people. Now, I'm not a hippie person. Okay, I'm not. I mean, I'm not down with the hippie culture. Just even though I'm for legalization, Kevin, because legalizing marijuana is part of a God-given right, which is the principle of the Constitution.
Well, you're proving my point.
So, Kevin, for you to say...
Wait a minute, though. You're proving my point, Eric, because I said that this is just the road to legalizing medical and then eventually recreational marijuana with the hemp.
Well, I don't care about the hemp. That's cool. They're legalized. It's kind of stupid, actually, if you ask me, because Idaho... Why does Idaho... hemp isn't even on the books to be illegal. And so, Idaho, it's because of that stop, because they pulled that truck over that was passing through with hemp, which is totally industrial uses. There ain't going to be, hippies and some stoners and stuff like you say. Somewhere along the way, they picked up hemp and added it to the pot and said, yeah, hemp and pot. Hemp is part of pot. They kind of picked it up. So
but you're in favor of
really,
legalization of marijuana, though.
I am for the legalization of marijuana.
You are. Right.
Yeah,
you prove my point.
Of course I am. Look, Kevin, listen, I'm not for. Here's what I'm not for. I'm not for telling somebody, hey, you can't grow a plant. You can't do that, even though it's not affecting me. That would be kind of socialist of me to go and tell somebody, you can't do this. You can't do this. Why would you, Kevin? Why would you tell somebody what they can and can't do? There's the 21-year-old kids here can can carry a pistol. Now I trust this. I live in Idaho. I'm not worried about it, but I'm just making a point. A 21-year-old kid can go buy a fifth of Jack Daniels and drive down the road with a pistol in his jacket legally. Now, you tell me what is wrong with somebody smoking marijuana in their house or in their backyard.
Now, Eric, you can't drive down the road legally drinking in Idaho. I got to run, but thank you, sir. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Is there anyone out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
There we have it. Any questions? Kevin Miller in the morning. Drug-free America. You remember that back in the day. And as we've said, law enforcement agrees with Kevin Miller that the road to hemp is the road to legalization of marijuana. And why hasn't anybody picked up this story where you have the Idaho Prosecuting Attorneys Association, the Idaho Fraternal Order of Police, the Idaho Sheriff's Association, and the Idaho Chief of Police Association has said that HB 122, now in the Senate, the Hemp Legalization Act, will effectively legalize marijuana in this state. That's what I'd like to know. Well, we're all hempsters. We want to talk about the money we're going to make on the farm. Really? Let's go to Buck in Meridian with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Buck.
Kevin, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. I listen often, don't get to call in much, but I just wanted to make an observation. Hopefully your listeners will agree that it seems to me, in listening to the proponents of marijuana or hemp, the ones that I hear on your radio station, they're the opposite of articulate, and my suspicion is that marijuana has already had an effect on their brains. Am I wrong?
I can neither confirm nor deny, Buck.
I have no evidence, just an observation.
Well,
Thank
Buck,
you, sir.
We appreciate you listening.
For what you do.
God bless.
You bet.
Thank
Take
you.
Care.
All right.
Bye.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, is your proud home of Fox News on the radio. That means when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's go live now to Capitol Hill. Jared Halpern joins us to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. Jared, good to have you with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad after that last call. We're debating whether or not hemp should be legalized in Idaho, a far cry from what's going on with the Supreme Court and immigration.
I guess, although we'll see. Listen, they may that may be a question they have to take up at some point, is states get a little bit more creative and lax in some cases with their marijuana and hemp laws. Well,
once you go down the road, it's tough to put the brakes on. At least that's what we're finding in our neighboring states. And speaking of the Supreme Court, it's, the Supreme Court kind of does their own thing. For many of us, the most influential branch of the government, Supreme Court in the news, where you have people floating something to the president to put in more justices, going back to the days of FDR. And, of course, he, in fact, gave his unfiltered response. But what's the latest, Jared, when we're talking about immigration?
So this was an immigration decision that was laid out yesterday. Justice Samuel Alito authored an opinion for a 5-4 court, so a divided Supreme Court that essentially says that the U.S. government has the authority to detain immigrants who could be deported at any time, even years after they've perhaps completed a prison sentence. It goes back to an immigration law that sort of sets which crimes are deportable for immigrants in the country legally. Most of these were green card holders. And the idea being that, how quickly does the government have to move to remove somebody from the country after that criminal conviction, after that sentence has been served? The group of immigrants who had challenged this had argued that in some cases they were being detained and processed for deportation years after they had completed a criminal sentence. Their argument is, in these cases, they have shown that they're not a flight risk. They're not a risk to the community. They have, been living legally in the country. And then several years later, they are then detained by immigration officials for deportation. The court, in this case, basically put forward the ruling that, listen, there's nothing in the criminal statute that says that there is a time limit. There's nothing in the statute, in the law, that says there is sort of a statute of limitations here for the government to start detention and removal proceedings. That if it's, the day after you get out of prison, they meet you at the prison gate, or it's years later, that doesn't really matter. Now, notably in the opinion, Samuel Alito noted that this was a case on the text of the statute and not a broader constitutional question over due process. So it left open the possibility that, issues like this could come back to the court potentially in a broader sort of due process type of argument, but that is not the case that was presented to them, and that's not the way that they ruled on this case.
Well, the Supreme Court, fascinating how they've once again left the door open for a return to this topic.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see that obviously with this court, and there's been a lot written about, in particular, the Roberts Court, although he did not author this opinion, always looking for perhaps the narrowest way to resolve an issue. You've seen that in other cases, some controversial, some not, brought to this court. And it seems to be, maybe what was at play here, too, that let's look at the question presented. The question presented is over this federal law and whether or not it puts a time limit on the ability of the government to make a deportation case after a prison sentence has been served by an immigrant, by a legal immigrant. And that has been what was decided. In this case, it doesn't. But notably, there could be larger issues about whether or not there's a longer constitutional argument as far as whether or not that law should be looked at. But again, that wasn't what was brought before the court. It was a textual argument about what does this law prohibit the government from doing and allow this government to do. Interesting analysis on the Roberts Court. Jared, thank you. Sure thing.
All right. Let's go to another hempster. Tea Party Bob joins us on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. Hemp. How are you today?
I'm not a hempster. I'm law enforcement and myself.
You're Mr. No Hemp. No Hemp. Right.
We have unveiled the plot to legalize marijuana, and we are rallying the troops against you and the hempsters.
I have a few words about the resurgence of violence in the Treasure Valley. We need to face the fact that the Treasure Valley is changing a lot faster than most of us would like. And when we hear about a beating of this woman in Foothills and more people being victimized by gang members, it brings to mind a conversation that I had with Sheriff Kieran Donahue in Canyon County about a year ago. And I asked him about the gangs that infested the county with the drive-by shootings and the assaults and how his department had cleaned up the county so well. Fact is that they cleaned it up, but he also said that we should expect another resurgence because most of those that were put away in the clink were put away for 7 years are going to be getting out shortly. I guess the resurgence in criminal assaults is the direct correlation to the gang members being released from prison.
Here's another one, Here's another one, though, and this is a problem unique to Canyon County, and they're getting ready. I think it's their fourth run at a new jail because you don't have enough room for violent and nonviolent offenders. They actually, you kind of wait to get in your jail time, and then remember when people were cutting themselves out of the jail. So,
well, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. The Treasure Valley that I knew and loved is in a dramatic transition, and it's not for the better. I would say that law enforcement officials are going to have their hands full in the next few years as more and more people find the Treasure Valley a place they'd like to live and settle. And among the good, you're going to wind up with the bad that will prey on them. I wanted to thank you for putting Representative Zito on this morning. We are not trying to legalize marijuana, and I think she made that pretty clear and a good case for growing hemp, but for some reason you just don't seem to bite on the good point.
I'm going to go back to what law enforcement has said in a letter to the legislatures. Hold on, let me just get in here. Unfortunately,
I've heard your whole story on this.
Our concerns and amendments have not been considered, and HB 122 is not a product of inclusion. Rather, HB 122 includes no protections for law enforcement and will effectively legalize marijuana in the state. Much the same language that we have been talking about concerning exposing the hemp cartel.
Let me put it to you this way. When we had the enhanced carry for college campuses, you had more policemen down there, more chiefs, more Indians than you could shake a stick at trying to stop it. Where were they when this bill was being presented? Where in heaven's name were they? They had an opportunity. They never showed up. So why are they complaining now? I don't remember any lawyers coming down to testify. I don't remember seeing an awful lot of policemen coming down to testify. I go down to testify all the time. This is a proactive government we have. Pro-life is right. They passed the bill, have it held up if you have to, and put the laws into effect.
Who knows whether or not they testified and were ignored? I wasn't there. Pro-life wasn't there. You weren't there.
My friend, please. They don't ignore them. They listen to them. But I don't believe
Do they listen to
there.
you? Do they listen to you?
Nobody listens to me except you.
Well, then why do you think they'd listen to the law enforcement?
Who knows? They didn't listen to him in a campus carry. We actually got that through.
Well, that was led by former Boise Police Chief Masterson, and
yes, I remember him. Don't you?
We had a great relationship.
Look, let's face it. People are going to break the law and use marijuana regardless of what you do to outlaw it, while we disallow the growing of a perfectly good product like hemp that can be beneficial to the economy of Idaho. It's just because it's a close relative of the plant. That's like saying,
why not?
You don't want your brother to come to Idaho because he smokes marijuana and you might become a user.
And you may not like your sister-in-law.
Well, come on. This is irrational thinking.
How is it irrational when they've stated concretely there are no tests to determine the difference between hemp and marijuana?
That's baloney. That is pure
that is not
baloney
baloney.
And malarkey. There are tests available. They could buy the equipment.
Not in this
to do
state.
The test.
Not right now.
Yes, they can. They can. They can go out and buy it. Listen.
Well, there's more money being wasted on frivolous expenses.
Well, there goes our wonderful grocery tax repeal. They're going to spend it on this.
We're going to buy it on the hemp.
It's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. The whole legislature is a joke nowadays.
Boy, there we have it. It's
always fun talking to you, Kevin.
God bless. Tea Party Bob.
You have a good day. Talk to you later, my friend.
You too. All right. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The hemp bill moves to the Senate. We'll see if there is any resistance to it. If you're just tuning in, the House voted overwhelmingly. Only 7 lawmakers said no to it. Everybody says it's a good thing. I've said this is the road to legalizing marijuana. Many of you have disagreed. We also have folks within the Idaho law enforcement community saying, look, this is not a good deal. They were not consulted, and they want to help farmers. They want to work in partnership, but they want to make sure that law enforcement is protected. Why not shelve this thing like we shelve everything else? Repeal of the grocery tax, urban renewal funding. Let's just put it on the back burner. Your thoughts next. Join the conversation now. We've got a few open lines. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Proudly supporting local law enforcement. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget Glenn Beck coming up, Dave Ramsey. Now, a friend of ours alerted us to William Bennett, was recently on the Fox News channel, best-selling author, The Book of Virtues, and he talked about the differences between marijuana today and marijuana back during the Just Say No campaign, made famous by Nancy Reagan.
Say it did surprise me in the sense that I thought I'd lost the capacity to be surprised anymore or shocked, you know. But yeah, it did. It really did. There's a lot of money in this stuff. And by the way, the marijuana that people are smoking today in Colorado is not the marijuana of the late 60s. 3% tetrahydrocannabinol in the late 60s, early 70s. Today, average in Colorado, maybe 20-25%. It's the difference between a light beer and a slug of
So it's much more potent.
Much more potent, much more powerful. Maureen Dowd, New York Times, wrote a column about going to Colorado and chewing a marijuana candy bar, and wrote in her column, I thought I had died after a couple of bites.
Yeah, like I said, hopefully the state of Idaho, in its infinite wisdom, with its public servants, will listen to what William Bennett is saying on KIDO Talk Radio and not put that stuff here, because you're going to have to find out, whether or not your candy bar is safe, whether or not your brownie is safe. Look at what's going on in Ontario. Look what's going on in Oregon. Stinky, stinky public parks, a rise in public service. By the way, it's funny, one of the papers did a thing on drug-free Idaho, whether or not their ads were true. Guess what? Their ads are true about the drug infestation, the legalization of this stuff. Now, again, am I being an extremist when we're talking about hemp? Maybe. And there are a lot of good people that are looking for a good product. I get it. But why not put it on hold for a second and say, let's take a look at these real concerns about not having a field test? How are you going to be able to do this? Somebody could be smoking a doobie, and then all of a sudden the police pull them over and go, well, no, I'm a hemp person. I'm making a necklace. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio.
Channel 7's Eric Everett.
I had to then apologize with a couple of subsequent columns because they got honor. But this stuff is potent and dangerous. And one thing we know for sure from the science, my former drug czar, my former Secretary of Education speaking here, for young people, it harms and can destroy focus, attention, and memory. Are they important in school? Are they important in growing up? Focus, attention. Are they important on the job?
Not if you're going into journalism.
Okay.
There we have it. Quickly to Jay in Meridian, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jay.
Hey, Kevin. I'm glad you brought up this topic. I have to disagree with Tea Party Bob, I think his name was, in that law enforcement was seeking, I happen to know, was seeking to sit down with legislatures on this and carve something out that everybody could agree wouldn't lead to legalization. And I think that's my main problem is the lack of inclusion of all the stakeholders in the community in crafting this bill.
So for sure the legislators didn't listen to the law enforcement people.
That's what I hear. Yeah, I can't say I was actually there, but I'm confident in saying that. And I just hopefully the Senate, invites law enforcement back to the table. You read the letter from all the stakeholder groups in the law enforcement setting, so just based on that, I kind of wish they would invite them back to the table and maybe get a bill that everybody can agree on would not lead to the road to legalization.
Thank you, Jay. Take care, brother. We continue to fight on. Ray Amaya, great job. God bless everybody and keep the faith. Glenn Beck's next.